Very good evening to everyone. We are here with yet another virtual session. And today's virtual session is all about the exploration of her journey. So I'll introduce today's speaker on our platform, Dr. Shambhavi, who is a developmental psychologist and the creatrix of Uurja Manifest the Life Model, a virtual holistic studio. She has completed her PhD in psychology and holds an MBA degree in human resources HR. She is working as a visiting counselor at the Indian Air Force Station of Guwahati. Besides, during her 10 years of professional journey, she has also worked with several military base, corporate schools, and NGOs across India. She is also a part of COVID Mental Health Awareness Campaign, National Network of Depression Center India Foundation, and a council member of Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry National Mental Health Council. So with this small introduction, ma'am, I want to welcome you on our virtual platform. Thank you so much to spare some amount of time with all of us.
Welcome, Bhavik, and thank you so much for having me today for this session. It indeed is a pleasure to be here and share my own journey while I was exploring my own mental health and, of course, the career as well. To begin with, I was introduced to this subject of psychology almost 2 decades ago. I was 11 years old then, and I remember it was a brief encounter with some Hindi movie where they were talking about counseling and a psychologist, but in a very funny way. Although that concept had fascinated me to a great extent. So while that thought, that idea was still back of the mind, because at 11, we are teenagers, we're still stepping into that phase of life where we are exploring, experimenting, trying to understand what we want to do in life, in our future as an adult. So that thought had been, somewhere it had been planted in my mind, the entire role of a psychologist. And while that was happening, of course, I was also experiencing a lot of changes inside the body, outside the body. A lot of things were happening. And I think that was a major milestone in my journey. Why? Because the kind of changes that were happening, emotionally, psychologically, physiologically, I was probably taking time to, adjust to these changes. But at the same time, I was also exposed to a lot of, uh, you know, uh, how do I put it, like body shaming, the kind of the bullying that we experience. So it was not just from my classmates, from my peers, but to the extent that even the teachers would be a part of it, at times relatives. So all of this was happening. Uh, as a result, I started getting in my own cocoon. I had built up that shell around myself that I did not want to go to school. So often I would fall sick, knowingly or unknowingly, and I would skip going to school. Now, my parents, of course, both of them were working, and the concept of mental health and everything was, I think, not given much importance then. I'm talking about almost 20 years ago. The awareness was not there, I would say. So generally, I was labeled as someone who was lazy, even in school, even at home, a lazy child, a lazy child. So eventually, my mother started taking me to her institute. She was the HOD there. So she started taking me on the days when I would not go to school. And even there, I was so aversive to social interactions and meeting people that I would generally go and hide myself in the library there. And since there would be no one in the library that time, I would sit and just go through different set of books. But I was still pretty young there. So this is around, 11 and 12. That is the time I'm talking about, 11, 12 years of my age. And that was the first time I also happened to see a textbook of psychology, which was being used for 11 standard students. The first, I think, exposure to the text, and also that made me realize, how to spell psychology, because till then I wasn't even aware of the spelling. I was so naive with that entire topic. So yeah, that was my first breakthrough it. However, that did not bring any much change in how my life was going. I still was avoiding going to school. I would generally not talk to people. I wouldn't go to my regular activities. I used to sleep a lot. All of this was happening. All of this kept happening for, I think, good 4 5 years till I actually entered my college. I made it through a very, very good, prestigious institute of Mumbai, where I started studying psychology formally. And while studying psychology and the different kind of issues, mental concerns, disorders that we talk about, speak about, that is where there that awareness started building up. And I started realizing that all this while it was not just about being a lazy child, but it was something more than that, because all the parameters, and since I was also studying, there was a lot of awareness which started building up, and I started realizing it was not just another a phase of adolescence where you feel low or something, but it was a form of clinical disorder which we call as depression. So I have lived with depression for a couple of years, and none of them even came to know. Neither my family nor my teachers, my friends. Rather, I did not have too many friends, but yes, it was very difficult for people around me to even understand or validate what I was going through then. But while I started studying and started taking this up seriously, of course there was awareness, there was this inclination to work in this field, also to give back to society in a positive way. How could I help other students? All of this was happening. So this was another part of my life. This was about the career and all. Let me briefly talk about what was happening with my personal life then. Since this awareness was coming in, I was pretty confident and sure, that yeah, I have forgiven all of them, and all of this is happening. It was my past. All this was happening cognitively, consciously. These kind of self talks would happen on and off. But there was a pattern which was being followed in my personal life, like majorly with my relationships. I would generally end up in a toxic relationship. By toxic, I mean to say either there was emotional abuse, either the man would cheat on me, or there was uncertainty. So my relationships were they were almost always on that edge. We were never sure. I wasn't very certain, and I was always insecure about my relationships. And this is how it continued. It did not stick to one relationship, but I think there were around 3 relationships that I had before getting married, and all of them rather had a similar pattern or very similar patterns in which I would So what I realized was there was a pattern in my relationships, and of course there wasn't much awareness of this till 2014, but this continued happening with my life. Mistrust issues, infidelity, all of this was very much a part of my relationships. In fact, when I got married pretty early, but once I started with my this new journey of being married, I started experiencing similar issues even with my spouse. So there was clearly a pattern there which I wasn't quite aware of. As I continued studying, started my practice as well. I completed my PhD in psychology. All of this was happening. The career was picking up really well, but there was something not going right with my relationships. And in 2014, I started learning certain modalities, especially the alternative healing techniques and more of therapies that I started working on. While learning and while getting trained under these trainers who were teaching us, this part of this patterns that I would what I'm referring to, we started looking at these patterns. And while working on myself, I realized that all these years, especially these early years of my life, where there was this continuous exposure to body shaming, being criticized, and a lot of these other things which were happening around, which I'm sure happens for a lot of us. I wasn't unique or very different when it came to this, but maybe I was a little vulnerable child. I was someone who couldn't regulate my emotions well. And so all of these emotions, all of these memories were somewhere they were so deeply rooted, or they were deeply somewhere stored in, not just in my memories, but they got stored in my body. Eventually I started developing issues related to my body as well. I had infertility issues. I had developed PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And of course it was being labeled as a lifestyle disorder, and I was comfortable with it till I actually went back to reflect what my body was trying to talk to me. And in this entire process, I realized that all those memories, all those events that had happened with me, or what I had experienced as a teenager, I probably had just thought that I have let go of it, but I actually had not let go of those. They were very much a part of me, and by that I mean a part of my body as well. And this is where my healing journey started. So career and all was going fine, but at personal fronts I still was having my own set of issues. When I started on with this healing journey, there were two parts and two aspects which I think played a very, very important role. One was about acknowledging. I'm sure most of us have heard of this. There's a lot of it being spoken over about this even on the social media. Acknowledge, validate. We hear this out. It sounds too, nice and niche and everything. But when it comes to the practice part, I'm not sure how many of us actually know how to do it. How many of us do it actually? So that is where the entire challenge was, that I know these concepts, my textbooks have taught me, but how to do it when it comes to my own self? And it was at that moment where I was, while exploring different modalities, I learned a new technique which is called as Hoponopono. Hoponopono is actually it's a Hawaiian technique, as in there is a tribe which is native to this place, Hawaii, and they have been using this technique for long, long, long time. This technique works on the basic rationale of forgiveness and gratitude. These are like the two main ingredients that go into this technique. When you first hear it out, when you listen to this, when you see how the entire theory works, it sounds very nice, sounds more theoretical. But when you start doing it, and when you start working with your complete intent there, it starts showing. It starts showing, as in the result starts showing up. And this was one technique that I kept using throughout these years. And of course, it is a slow process. I won't say things changed overnight, but today, like, it's almost close to 7 years now. And 7 years, after 7 years, today I can confidently put it across to my clients, even to other participants who attend the webinars that I conduct, or in general when I talk to or speak to people about it. This technique is very, very effective. Why was it effective? Because all this while, when I just assumed that I had forgotten those incidences, or I have let go of them, I had maybe just visualized or imagined that I have done that, but not really working on it consciously. This technique taught to me how to work on it, put in efforts to let go, and not just let go from my thoughts, but it was more to do of letting it go from my body, the way it had been stored all this while. And while I did this entire the process or this therapy on myself, I won't say things changed. What has happened in the past, they will continue to be there. They will be there. Nothing is going to get erased from your memory. It will still be there. But you know what changes? in this entire bargain. Even today, when I, let's say, if I happen to meet those individuals, or my teachers, my classmates, I meet them, I greet them, but at the same time there is no grudge. Probably now when we talk about those events, we might laugh over it, but before I healed myself, this thing never happened. It was more about, experiencing all those emotions with the same intensity, at times much more. Just the thought of them, just seeing them online or seeing them on some or the other virtual platform, it might just trigger a lot of different memories, although I had believed and I had assumed that I had let go of it. So this letting go thing is, it's not just a part of thinking that, oh, I will let go, I will forget, but it requires a lot of efforts on your part as an individual, and not to let others benefit, but it is all about you. It is all about your mental hygiene when you forgive, when you express gratitude. And when I say expressing gratitude, we do not restrict it to people, individuals, or events, or incidences, or things that have benefited you, because that's obvious, we do it. But this process of Ho'oponopono also acknowledges the fact that, the ones who have, been bad to you, they have been rude, they have affected you negatively, go ahead and thank them as well. Be grateful. Say thank you to them as well for the life lessons that they brought into you. And the moment you start doing this and you start practicing it with your full intent, that is very, very important. You will see how the dynamic starts changing, not specially, not just with that person or that situation, but the dynamic starts changing within you, you as a person, you at all the levels, at, let's say, your personal level, at your professional level, your social level, financial level, energy level, at all these different levels, you will start experiencing a shift. And that shift is, it's beautiful, right? So yeah, that's about my journey, and the journey continues. Of course, there are lessons which are coming every day. With each passing day, there is new things that I learn. I keep there are incidences where I do feel upset, but then I know how to come back, or rather to how to bring that balance once again, so that a part of me doesn't get stuck there, or I don't hold on to those emotions in my body. And yes, throughout this journey, the healing part is happening, again, not just at the emotional level, but at the physiological level as well. So I've been healing all those physiological body related issues that were being stored in the body, but gradually the process is still going on, right? All right. So on that note, yeah, is there anything that I could answer?
Yes, ma'am. So there are few questions we would like to ask you, or like a
Sure.
discussion with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, ma'am, when we connected with you, there was a point that when we saw your profile, it was like we should ask to her that can we talk to her. That was the moment it was there with us, that can we talk to her. It was not like can we have a session, can we talk to her. And today is the day, yeah, we can talk to her. Definitely, she is available for all of us whenever we need in the terms of health or mental health. So, ma'am, your profile says Urja, and this word is a very depth, like a depthful meaning of this energy. And we do describe energy in different format. But in terms of mental health, how we have taken this name Urja for you to teach people from different sectors. So, what was the idea behind when, even when you are in a process of healing, you had a topic called or the name called Urja to treat people. So, what was that idea and when it started and all?
Okay. So the name actually is Urja Manifest the Light Within. And this journey also started in 2013. So the idea was conceptualized. I was still working around it. And it took some time to, formally establish it. But why was it Urja? Let me begin with that. Because when I started reflecting on my life, and I don't feel any shame or anything when I discuss my own case study with with my clients, with my students. I do share about my own life, because I was my own I was my first client, I could, if I could say that way. I started reflecting on my journey and how things have been, and as I mentioned it earlier, even when we talk about the healing part, we just look at the body, we only look at mind. But all of this somewhere is connected to an energy, a source of energy, which we at times forget to acknowledge, or maybe we are not even aware of. And this energy plays a very, very, very important role. Maybe since it's not a scene and it doesn't have a form as such, so most of us assume, or rather we just take it for granted, that we are not sure what we are talking about. However, it is pure science, and I'm sure each one of us has learned this, right? E is equal to mc square. So energy cannot get destroyed, it gets transformed. And during this process of experiencing different things, happy moments, sad moments, different kind of emotions, it was important to reflect and see what happens to these emotions. One, we experience it, but if we experience and we do not process it, we do not let it out, what is exactly happening? Where does this energy go? Because the energy is not going to die, it will be somewhere or the other. So if it doesn't go out of my body, it definitely is stored in my body. And that is where this entire the quest for understanding the nature of this energy and how could we use energy as a healing medium, how could we work on this energy. And that is where that entire name came up, Urja, and it was about manifesting the light within. So the substratum of that line, that tagline, is that each one of us is born with that source of light. It never happens that, oh, he or she has it more or less. It is just the awareness part. The day we become aware that all these healing energies are not outside me but inside within me, I think that helps tremendously. As a facilitator, my job is just to help you tap on that source of energy. So it is all about this energy which you as an individual are holding on to, and we just need to be more aware and realize it, what you're holding on to. And yes, that's how the name had come up, Urja, manifest the light within.
Thank you so much, ma'am, because that light is required to heal people in the mental health sector. Ma'am, there is a picture on your LinkedIn, ma'am, of yours. It says a confidence, like how you said. Like if I talk about it, it was like full of confidence. But when you have shared your journey, it was different. So, ma'am, what was the thing that make you more confident in terms of mental health sector?
Okay. So when you talk about confidence again, I have, it has gradually built up, and more than showing that confidence on the outside, it has to do more on the inside. How comfortable are you with yourself? And let me just share a small episode from my life. I'm sure most of you must have heard the story of that ugly duckling. How there were these small little ducklings, and there was this one ugly duckling, and how everyone would criticize that ugly duckling, and the mother would keep telling that ugly duckling, no, you're going to become a beautiful swan. And the story continues till that ugly duckling turns out to be a beautiful swan. This is a story which I think a lot of us have heard at some point or the other in our lives. In my life, I had heard the story, like, I don't know, for 1,000 times. Not just a bedtime story, but when I'm waking up, maybe at other time. And my mother would constantly keep telling me this particular story. There was nothing wrong. Of course, she was trying to be, she was trying to be good. She was trying to help me out with all those things that were happening around me. So that was her way of protecting me. But for a child who is so vulnerable, already someone who is unable to regulate her emotions, for this child, she starts internalizing the story. and starts connecting to that ugly duckling, not looking at the other part of will I become a beautiful swan someday or no, but that ugly duckling started becoming a part of my own personal narrative somewhere. And that is where it started reflecting on my interactions in my work, in my school performance, and that is how it kept happening. It went on for a long, long time. So, when you talk about this confidence, it was about the narrative that I used for myself. My narrative was around this ugly duckling, and yes, this is me. I had internalized it till I started realizing it's not really the ugly part of the duckling. It is a duckling. It can be in whichever size, shape, color, or whatever it is. The duckling is a duckling. The ugly part of it is something which these are labels.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, you're here. I thought I got disconnected.
No, no.
So, okay. So, yeah, so this ugly part was more like, a label which was being used by our caregivers and all of that. But eventually, working through this journey of therapies and exploring, meeting different clients, because my clients also had a very, very strong impact on me. Throughout that journey, I realized how to work on this narrative, and which aspect do I internalize and how do I change the narrative about myself. So I'm still the same individual I was, in terms of how I looked, or maybe the kind of personality. I'm still the same. But what changed was the kind of narrative that I had for myself, not to let other people know about it, but how I looked at myself. What kind of values, virtues was I dwelling upon? That was very, very important. And maybe, that is what just reflects on the outside as well. So it's very important to pay attention to those thoughts and those internal narrations that you have for yourself. That's very important according to me.
Thank you so much, because this outlook will help us as a student too and as a healer, because we are the healer in this medicine field, and that should be the one we should propagate and promote to the people. Ma'am, there is a this area, or this era is called as the information area, and you have worked in your PhD about that how internet, how addiction of the internet, how people are using more to the phones and all. So what was this COVID? Because COVID is having more to the online mode. Today we are talking this on Zoom.
True.
Maybe every day we talk through Zoom. So we are coming more to the online mode. So what was your
Right.
take on that? Because you are a healer and to connect to the people, not online but offline mode. So how you would take
True.
to this part?
Thank you for actually touching upon that topic, Bhavit. In fact, I generally, even whenever I talk to my other fellow researchers and my own PhD guys, we take it in a very light way, like how I started my research. And my research was all about how this internet is turning out to be a problem for our generation, and for, adolescents especially. This was, in the 2015, 17, that was the time when I was doing my research. And 5 years down the line, we are here in this pandemic, and it is internet is the only savior, I could say. How people could stay connected. Of course, there is a shift in the way we would look at it in pre-COVID times and during COVID times. But nevertheless, I won't completely refute the research findings that I had then. In fact, the concern keeps growing now even more. Why? Because children are now completely glued to the screens for academic reasons, of course, but this is simply, increasing their tolerance level towards the screen time. That is one. Also, that entire aspect of, immediate gratification. So whatever they want is just available. That is getting reinforced even more. earlier maybe parents had some points to point out at times, saying that, oh, you're spending too much of time on the internet or maybe on the screen. But now even they are at loss of words, because this is the need of the hour. They have to be on screens, they have to study online. And for that matter, even parents, if it's a working parent, of course even they are working from home, they are on screens. So yes, technology is helping us, and technology is here to stay. I won't ever say that, technology is going to completely stop it. No, I have never ever said that. Even while my research was going on, I have never focused or emphasized on this point. My point has been very, very different. My point or my focus has been more about how we can bring in a balance. So while you are spending your time on the internet, on the technology, also find time, because now it will be important to find time. It will be difficult to just have time for yourself. No, you do not have, because you're spending all your time on the internet, working, studying, all of that. So now you will have to consciously pull out some time from your routine, and that time, you will have to spend maybe with yourself, maybe about bonding with family members, strengthening it, all of that. Because I have read this post somewhere that offline is the new luxury. It is true, of course it is true, because we have to work towards it. It's not coming effortlessly to us. We'll have to work on it someday. And it's better if we start it as early as possible, because even research and findings have shown us that an extended exposure to the screen or media is going to have effect on our brain and the way our brain functions. So if we want to have a way to counter these side effects, we will have to work as a unit, as at society level, at family level, but as a unit. Individually it will be very difficult perhaps. In fact, the fact that internet and social media platforms have helped us connect and stay connected, socially connected during this pandemic, it is wonderful. But let's say tomorrow, if there is if there is a technology glitch somewhere, across the globe, and we do not have the internet, what are we going to do? It is going to lead lot of us in a very, very miserable state. Why? Because the dependency has already got created. We are already dependent on the technology for good things as well, and as well for the for its side effects that it's having. So it would be great if we could start right away, especially with children, especially with adolescents who are already experiencing a lot of changes at all the fronts. It would be nice if, as adult, we could also bring in these ideas, and we could shape around how our family dynamic or the family environment is operating. So putting in efforts to managing this technology and internet time is very, very important in the current scenario. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And it was great listening to you because I am relating to myself, to my work, to my strengths, what we are dealing with right now. Ma'am, you have worked 8 years in different cultural and ethnic background, which India is most part of it, the diversity in every single aspect. If we walk 5 kilometers, there is change in the diversity.
Hmm. Hmm.
How you deal in the psychology, because diversity makes a very major role in this mental health.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, Bhavat. In fact, this has been a major challenge for me in early years of my career, because most of the modalities that we get trained in are drawn from Western psychology. You talk about CBT, you talk about RECBT. These have been the I would say the contemporary ones, and they have been all-time evergreen therapies that each one of us gets trained in, and we have an inclination towards it. But there's a lot of emphasis on the language there. And when I was in such a background, I still am, so I keep moving across India every 2.5 years. And often it takes me to parts and pockets of the country where there is not much awareness, especially when it comes to mental health. That's one. And secondly, even to talk to them, language can be a barrier now. So, in such times, these therapies and theories that we have learned might not really give you the kind of results which we get otherwise. So, if I try to use the same therapies, let's say in urban cities or with a learned group or where people are already aware, it helps. It definitely helps in best of its possibility. But with these other set of people, yes, it becomes a problem, especially when there is this language barrier that we experience. And that was a time when I started exploring more therapies. I started coming up with more of an eclectic approach. And now when I use my therapies or when I work with mental health, I use more of an integrative approach, where it is not just the theories and therapies from the Western psychology, but I integrate a lot from Eastern psychology, and especially from the Indian version. So the practices that I follow are deeply rooted in Buddhist practices, and definitely it has been very very helpful because it goes beyond the language barrier. It goes beyond the the cultural context, because end of the day we are a collectivistic culture, we are a collectivistic society. So that, if we can tap on that pulse of the community, of the society, I think that has been one of my strengths, I would say, when it comes to working with diverse cultures and groups. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would have one last questions for you, and
Yeah.
I would not take that much time. But ma'am, like when we see the mental health, there is a so much taboo in our area. And you are staying now in Guwahati, if I'm not wrong. So these are the parts of our India where most of the things are not exposed to. If
Mhm.
a patient or a client comes to you and who is having any mental health issues, what was your first approach to deal with that patient or client?
Okay. So as far as Guwahati, Assam is concerned, I came here last year, a year ago. So 1.5 year ago. And ever since then, the pandemic happened, and I'm sure each one of us is aware, like how the wave of this mental health awareness and a lot of influencers talking about it. So it has just picked up, and now almost every second, third person talks about mental health at least, which is good, which is great, I would say, considering the times that we are. So yes, people are openly talking about it. That doesn't mean the stigma has completely disappeared or the taboo around is not there. No, it is still there, but at least people have started talking about it. When it comes to Guwahati, I would say that still the awareness is very much intact. It's not about not people not coming up or coming out openly. In fact, they are doing it. But where the challenges come in, the challenges come in especially with clients who are referred. So especially in a military base, because with military bases, a client is sent to you because he or she was found to be behaving in some ways which were inappropriate. So the organization believes, or the seniors believe, or the subordinates believe. So very rarely you will find the individual coming up with their own problems. They do, but it is rare. So that is where the major challenge comes up, when a client is referred to you and not really out of their own concern or awareness. When they come up with their own concerns, it is a little easy, I would say, not completely easy, but a little easy, because now they are motivated to work towards the issue. When they are referred, and it's not limited to military base, it is also across different organizations. It is also where children, adolescents, and the parent thinks or the teacher thinks he or she needs counseling. So now this is a time where the rapport building becomes very 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 important. Because if we directly jump on to, what your boss told me, this is how you behaved, or what happened, why did you do that, definitely these individuals will get into their own shell, and they wouldn't want to talk to you about anything. Rather, the body language will change. uh, in fact, just to go a step ahead from that, when they enter in, if it's a physical face-to-face session, What we see is the body language is already very closed and stiff and rigid. But in such times and with such clients, it would be great if we start with simply building up a very strong rapport, and that can take a little longer as compared to how we do in other sessions at times. So that is where I say, I'm a little flexible with my clients. I don't stick to one particular therapy, or I do not stick to how it has been put down or laid down in the books, but I try to play around with the concepts. I know what and how to use it, but I will use more of an integrative approach. So in such times, if there's a client who doesn't really want to work on his or her problem, thinks that this is not a problem or there is no awareness, it first starts with just simple rapport building. And the moment you find the rapport being built in more it is strong enough that now we can explore. I start with exploring their issues which they feel is something which we can work on together. I think that becomes important, because if that connection is established, we also understand that the other issues, it could be about behavioral issues, it could be about how this person is behaving with other colleagues or at school with peers, with friends. All of this is simply, it's more like a result of something else. But often people don't look at the main cause, they want to look at all these superficial causes of problems, and for these superficial problems they get referred. So as a therapist, my job here becomes that I try to first understand the client, I try to understand what would they want to talk about, and from there on we pick up and we keep connecting the dots. And yes, that has been very, very helpful as far as my work has been concerned so far, or my clients have been concerned so far. So yeah, that's a strategy which I use with clients who come from a little, let's say, not being aware of, not being reluctant to undergo counseling. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So my concluding question would be like, if I want to come and learn from you as an intern, so is it possible, because we are the student and how you are working, is it very good to learn from that? So how it would be that we can connect with you offline mode rather than online? And second question, what would be your parting thoughts to all of the students who are going to watch this?
Okay, let me answer your first question. How can you connect with me? And if you're talking about the intern part, definitely we can work on this, because if a group comes from a similar background, then we can have a program which is exclusively, carved around their requirements and needs. That's one. Also, there's a possibility to have virtual, psychology clubs where we can just meet, discuss cases, talk about it. This can also happen. So there are different mediums that can be shared and that can be explored. That's one. Coming to your second question, a giveaway or a parting thought here would be these two concepts which have been with me throughout my journey, and I think they are going to stay with me, till I am in my physical body in this life. So that one has been the forgiveness part, and the second has been gratitude. And both of them have, of course, they also have not just an emotional base, but they also have a physiological base, which has been proven by science. So, if we can hold on to these two, I think life becomes pretty simple, very, very, very simple. And then you start enjoying life in its thick and thins, because it's not always going to be something very, very good that is happening around you. We are going to experience loss. We are going to experience, breakups. We are going to experience uh, failures. All of this is a part of this journey. But if we stick on to this forgiveness and gratitude, I think these two will help you sail through that, and it will always help you to bounce back and come back in that equilibrium every time you get off the balance. Having said that, remember that it is okay to go off balance, and it is normal and it is natural. What is more important is how you come back to balance, and that is it. I think that will make life pretty easy, simple, and fun to live. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That if I am a student of yours, I have learned so many things in 40 minutes. So first thing I have learned that in your life there will be so many ups and downs. You have to learn with those experiences and you have to come over that. Secondly, you have to give a chance for your journey to live more what you want, because when we decide something it may have up and down, but you can live to that. And third, that if you forgive and have gratitude your nature, you will be do very good things in your life, and it will approach you to reach more number of heights and to connect more number of people in your future. So thank you so much, ma'am, with this approach, and I want to thank you that you have spare 40 minutes with all of us, and that would be a very great immense pleasure with all of us. Thank
Welcome, welcome. And thank you, Bhavit, and all the very best. This is a wonderful, initiative, and all the best to you and your entire team.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.